the overview of the sessions that have gone in the last 3 days, and we're going to look at what next steps that we've thought about, and then we're going to listen to your ideas as to what our next step should be, and that is what the my presentation is about. I'm going to look at the overview of the sessions and cast it in the form of takeaways from the conference. If they are no good for taking away with you, then they are not going to be seen today. I think the first thing that we have to take away is how natural human instincts define the hierarchy of our needs, our psychology, our physiology, and our behavior. And that is what I have here. These are the survival instincts, as in the Bible, they're talked about as something that we all have. We have a creaturely soul. Okay, so we have all these three instincts which work unconsciously, and unconscious working of our brain is the brain stem. Okay, and in psycho-spiritual terms, they call the sensory faculty. And then the Bible also talks about, in addition to creaturely soul, we got an animal soul. Animals are defined by herd instinct. Creatures don't have that instinct developed. They have some sense of who is a person or an entity of my species, some sense of it, but that sense is not developed enough to be to seek safety in their company. Okay, you're not threatened, but you're not seeking safety in their company too. And that herd instinct works subconsciously. And you can say racial discrimination or all kinds of discrimination comes from there. Unconscious, we are not even aware that we are discriminating against the other. We may be killing him with stress, but we are not aware. And that works through, as far as the brain part is concerned, through the amygdala, through the limbic brain. As amygdala, there are two of them as part of the limbic structure. And in psycho-spiritual terms, the word there is ego. So ego also goes on to conditional love and belonging. I belong to my family, I belong to this race, and I belong to that religion, I belong to that community. Whatever is connected with me, I have some sense of belonging to that. Okay, that also is subconscious action of the amygdala in the limbic brain, and psycho-spiritually is part of the ego. And then we also have a natural instinct that makes even animals, the creatures, compassionate to each other. So those are feelings of the heart, but those feelings of the heart come and go. And they go very easily because of our connection with these lower needs or lower instincts. This is a higher instinct called the noblest instinct that we have got. It's built into us, but it doesn't have a chance because these needs, they overpower it. And this works totally consciously. It's the work of the life force that we have got, and the life force works through our intellect or wisdom, and in neurophysiological terms, it works through our prefrontal cortex, which is a part of the neocortex, right in the starting above the eyes, you can say. So this is something I want you to take away from this particular conference. We are different manifestations of the same unseen spirit, and we are also different manifestations of our natural instincts. Okay, natural instincts what define us. It defines our body, and it defines our physiology, it defines our mind, it defines our psychology, which runs the body. So our behavior is done by our psychology. And we are all alike as far as instincts are concerned. There may be slight differences because of the journey of evolution taken by each one of us. So because we are one in the spirit, and that oneness in the spirit is overpowered by our natural instincts, it's good for us to realize that we are all being overpowered by those natural instincts. And if we care for each other's needs, then we have no problem. So the instincts are there for me to realize, yes, I'm being compelled by them, but then so are you being compelled by them. So is everybody else being compelled by them. If I look after your interests, your instinctive needs, and you look after mine, then we've got no problem at all. But that's not what is happening. Okay. So unity and diversity, although it is one of our instincts, but it is so up higher in the hierarchy that it is being overpowered. And the overpowering of the lower instincts keep the gas pedal of our life pushed. Okay, survival instincts keep the gas pedal pushed because they're so immediate, they're so urgent, they want their bidding done now. So our mind works very fast, too much mental activity going on, too much physical activity going on. Our heart is pounding fast, our breath is going fast, our digestive system is low, our energy system, metabolic system cannot cope. So all of those things are happening because of the instincts keeping the gas pedal pushed. And we'll do ourselves a favor by pushing the brake pedal too, which nature has built into us. And that brake pedal is something that I want you to take with you. And I showed you, and we went through this experience of doing deep breathing for 10 minutes. Take that. That's a great takeaway from this thing. Sit still and sit tall and breathe deep regularly with family and friends and share with them the moments of deep calm in your mind and calm in your body, and feel the tranquility that results from that. And that is a contemplative practice that is built into us. Nature has given us that ability. Okay, and it is so easy to do. And if we do that on a regular basis, it changes our lives. It weakens the pull of the instincts, and we become more spiritual. We become more connected with each other. And that is a natural thing. So next steps, whatever little thinking that I have done about the next steps. And I have learned from you, my colleagues, what our next steps should be. That's what I've tried to put down here. Think globally and act globally. So we have a global proposal for education at all levels, including university. We are not keeping the higher education away because that is where the teachers are going to come from. That is where the research on communication of these ideas is going to come from. So you can't say that we should only do it at the primary school level because then we will fail because we'll have no support of research, we'll have no support of training of the teachers. And we also have a local proposal for a specific school. There are many schools who are already way advanced on this type of education. So we can share our ideas with them through that proposal. And what I think we should do is put our ideas in a proposal form, make it available, uh, finalize, copy, edit, publish, and disseminate the global proposal. It's over 100 pages. First 10 pages, 12 pages are the proposal body itself, and then the rest of it is what I have presented in this conference, the background material that we've gone through. And that would be part of the big proposal, but that part would be in the appendices, okay? The people will be looking at the executive summary, and then after having looked at the executive summary, they look at the proposal, and then if they are interested in different specific parts of it, then they can look at the background information, the appendices. So that is how the proposal is structured. And I think we should go ahead and look at it together, change the language, and get it published professionally so that it's an open proposal made to the whole world. And we try to have some way of disseminating the published copies to where things can work. And then we should also at the same time finalize code template of the local proposal for customization for specific schools. Keep working at this specific school level, not only primary school levels, I would say even high school levels, and some universities may be open right now. So we should be approaching some of the places which are more amenable to our kind of thing, and yet we can have that proposal available to the rest of the world to think about. And what I was thinking of was separating the proposal with the promotion of it for adoption. I think that we can achieve. And once we have the proposal published, then we have something that we can go and promote. And obviously, we are going to word the proposal in general terms so that people can customize how to implement it. Develop curricula and start delivering contemplative holistic education to prospective teachers and others. And this is where Bill thinks we need your help. And this is where we will need help of all educators. We will be taking up, going into education ourselves to do the best we can to whatever section of society we can reach. And another strategy that we are talking about is weave contemplative spirituality in with the teaching of social sciences, humanities, natural sciences, and life sciences. We teach physics. We can teach physics, physical facts, but if we teach them with meaning attached to them, that's all that we need. So we should be looking at different subjects and how they're taught and how they can be changed a little bit so that what we're talking is also our purpose is achieved as along with the achievement of the purpose of those disciplines. And then we think we should continue pushing the proposals at appropriate levels, right from United Nations to individual schools, colleges, universities, states and federal governments and provinces and federal governments in Canada. And that is my 15 minutes, I hope. Christine, I haven't gone too far.
Shiv, I'm impressed. Right on time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sharing my screen so that you can share Robyn's screen.
Okay, so I will be doing the sharing since Robyn is having some technical difficulties. So Robyn, when you would like me to, let me just get my screen here. When you would like me to move forward, just so it's not, yeah, just say next.
Okay, all right, well, go ahead and put it up. I just tried sharing on my phone and it won't work, so.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, it says it's being paused. There we go, resume share.
You got it?
Let me try a new share, hang on here. Let's try this. That is green now. Is it showing?
Okay. It's showing on my phone, so hopefully everybody can see it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. First of all, before I get started in the proposal, I want to let you know that one of our companions in this process was Fred Lawler, and he's not here with us because his wife's mother passed away. So I would like to send him our, prayers and our support during this difficult time for his family. Then I want to talk a little bit about Shiv's worldwide plan and ways that we could work on that with people like the United Religions Initiative, the Parliament of World Religions. We can try and do workshops. They have annual meetings and stuff. We could try getting these concepts out in an international way by using some of our connections through the interfaith groups. And I think that will help start spreading the word a little bit. But I tend to agree with everybody. We've got to start at the beginning. So what I did was I took Shiv's presentation and I tried to make it a shorter, more user-friendly presentation that we could use in local school districts, private schools, maybe contact some places that create homeschooling curriculum. A lot of those have faith-based classes in them. We could do after-school workshops. We could invite some of the middle schools, which is where students start having a little bit of emotional, behavioral issues start showing up during puberty, that we could offer an elective course for their difficult students, just to get it out there and have some working knowledge of how it's helping and some statistics that we can then go to present to some of these policymakers as we move forward, all the while still getting the word out there through those international groups like Parliament of World Religions. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this proposal with you. Obviously, this is the cover sheet, and you put the name of the school that you're trying to approach on there. Then, Christine, you can go to the next slide. Oop, I lost it. I lost the screen share. Let me just look at it on my end, maybe. Can everybody else still see the slides?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Okay, good.
So Robyn, I'm on the world is in crisis.
On my end here.
Yeah.
Okay. The world is in crisis. When contemplating the major problems in our world today, we can't help but realize that there must be a change. War, prejudice, poverty, climate change, national resources, animal extinctions, disease, and so forth. The traditional methods we have tried have failed. It's time to change the way we think about the world and each other, and it needs to start today with our young people. Education should be life-changing and empowering. It should transform young minds into great leaders with a deeper understanding of a worldview where we are all connected to each other and to this planet. We are proposing that in addition to traditional learning, that a more complete approach should be added as well, teaching young minds the skills and techniques that world-renowned individuals like Albert Einstein, David Bohm, and Dalai Lama used. And then there's a quote that we've heard before from the Humboldt form of education that was highly successful when it was brought out. Traditional education might address bullying, but it has never taught compassion. They might teach about prejudice, but they never taught unity and the oneness of mankind. Discussions about the environment are common, but explaining that all life is connected by life energy is not. In short, students are given the rationale, but not the deep understanding of it. Wholeness or holistic education would help connect science, biology, botany, and physics and metaphysics together in a more balanced and complete system. Okay, next page. Not only teaching fact-based information, but also teaching techniques and skills to improve mental and physical health naturally. To also teach the lessons that ancient and Aboriginal people knew about the connection to the world around us. Yes, we are diverse, but we are also unified in our basic desires for peace and harmony. Science has also proven that we are also unified by the energy that is the basis for all things. We believe that teaching these concepts will increase the desire to reach out to all life with love and kindness because we are connected. Our proposal is simple. We would like to work with educators to come up with a balanced and complete program to help teachers add a new, more positive dimension into our classroom. We will help create curriculum, samples attached, and we will help train the teachers in these life-changing mediums. Help us bring your schools, and then you put the school in there, to the 21st century and beyond. Let us help you to put your young people on a path to successfully change not only their health and happiness, but the peace of the world around them. How can this holistic education be integrated? Well, very easily and flawlessly. Science classes can add the deeper reflective study of atoms and the energy, the life force that is in all matter. Biology classes can go deeper into the energy life force in all living things and how that energy has been documented to transfer between plants and animals. Health classes can teach about the energy life force that human beings have and how it can be used for healing. Deep breathing and relaxation techniques can also be taught. In geography, you can teach about sacred spaces all over the world and the story behind how they became sacred. History classes can discuss the ways of ancient and Aboriginal peoples who had a deep connection to the earth and all life. Theology classes could teach about all the different faith practices that believe we are connected to one another and the earth. In addition, there could be elective courses on meditation, focusing techniques, yoga breathing, even Tai Chi that would connect all these concepts into a whole world view. Next page. Contemplative education, holistic education, and meditation are currently being tried in many schools now with positive success stories. And here, obviously, some links that they can look up and read about how these programs are working in other schools. The purpose of Shen. And then the last 2 pages are just about the task force, the one that was involved in 2019 at the beginning of this. And then those of you that are working on our working conference here, we would love to have your permission to show your names. If you have personal websites, we like to list those to help, create more credibility. And any other information you think that would be pertinent to this conference. So I hope that's helpful if you feel like this would actually be useful to presenting to small schools. I still feel like the, private schools, Montessori, homeschooling curriculum, and offer it as an elective, an after-school program that parents can, sign off on if they're not interested, just to get some students involved and see how this might transform their health and their behavior and their worldview, and actually, have these teachers be our focus groups, and they'll be at the very beginning of a life-changing event, and that might excite them, so I would approach it from that standpoint, all the while still reaching out with workshops and stuff on the international level. So that's pretty much it, and we welcome your thoughts and your conversation on this, and thank you again for being involved with us these last 4 weeks, and I really appreciate your support and your willingness to help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robyn, and beautiful job boiling this down into these important paragraphs that you've put here. Just one thing that stood out for me as you were going over these quotes. The words that you said were very impactful. You said that, they teach about the climate change, but they don't mention this. So I think including that is very powerful because it shows what we're doing today, but what is actually missing. So I missed that while you were speaking because I was looking at the quote. And so I think that's a very powerful thing to add. And as well, I think what's missing is that we would be able to provide some ideas for the curriculum, because they're probably thinking, oh my gosh, this is so much work. I don't have time to create all of this. And so I think including in here that, we have a starting point for curriculum ideas that can be leveraged. So that was my input. And for those, there's been a lovely conversation going on in the chat with Colleen. She had some ideas. She had to jump off the call. And so I'll leave that in there for people to read on their own, but just wanted to highlight that. Now, are there any suggestions? How can we improve this succinct proposal for us to distribute to the smaller schools who would be a little easier to convince that this is a good thing for them to implement and adopt in their schools? Stephen, I see your hand up. Yep.
Yeah, that was a beautiful overview, really. It gives a good sense of what we're trying to put out there. My suggestion is that we also provide an example, a concise example. In other words, we take a section that we think will be most appreciated by those receiving this packet, and we state what our objectives or aims are for that particular lesson section. And then we have in bullet form the various components of the lesson, or a sample of the components of the lesson. All of this in less than half a page. So there should be some discussion on our part if we decide to use that strategy of which particular area we want to flash as an example.
Excellent suggestion. And to add to that, Robyn, you have listed all the websites where this has been implemented. And I think so, Stephen, this ties into what you're saying is instead of, that's work for people to have to click and then they have to read through where's the pertinent information for me, what do I care about on this huge web page that I've got to research now. Maybe just taking extracts of the key end results of people integrating this into the curriculum. So some measurable effects of what has already occurred with these people or organizations and schools that have implemented this style of learning. Yeah, Ashwin?
Yeah, this is more of a question. I'm wondering what we think of very similarly mindfulness and meditation. I've seen that gain traction over the last few years. So for example, the University of Toronto has a few courses and some programs emerging. So I'm wondering if we can learn or piggyback or leverage some of the, the inroads they've made in that sphere.
Yes. Robyn, do you have anything to say in response to that?
I
You
do.
are
Christine,
okay. Yep.
I think mindfulness is a great way of getting to contemplation, but you have to be careful as to where you learn it. I have taken a course from the University of Toronto. I think many of the teachers botch it up. They make it too complicated. It is not as complicated as they make you believe it is. And they kind of scare you away by bringing a whole list of 2,000 things that you should do mindfully. Actually, if you look at the book that the Buddha wrote on mindfulness, there are only 12 exercises of conscious breathing that leads to mindfulness. And mindfulness is not a psychological issue. It is essentially a mind-body issue. You involve the body, that involves the mind. Okay? And that is a much easier approach. And with that approach, you can teach mindfulness to a unborn child. We were talking about it, and a 3-year-old kid that I taught mindfulness to with just deep breathing. And we've been teaching at the hospital for 10 years what we used to call mindful breathing. And that's all we did. Breathe together with them for 20 minutes and talk about it for an hour and a half. I and Shobna and Dr. Nathwani and Dr. Dubey is not here today. There are 4 of us, 6 of us actually used to go take turns. Every week, twice a week we did, and we did nothing but breathe with them, and we were able to help them get rid of their alcohol addiction of years past. So there's mindfulness and there's mindfulness. Okay, so it's a technique rather than it's a skill. It can be taught to a child, and that is how it should be addressed. That is how it was addressed by the Vedas. That is how it was addressed by the Buddha.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Shiv. Robyn, you had your hand up, and then Milt.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to go to the website and see the document that says how to integrate contemplation. Basically, it's some suggestions of how we can teach young people to learn to focus and learn to contemplate and learn to be mindful. One of the examples in that presentation is writing, having the students write a story. It's called sensory writing, and they are writing a story. And I gave you an example about a boy. He's supposed to write a story about something that happens at home. And, the example was, we have family dinner on every Wednesday night. It's required that we're all there, and mom always makes my favorites. And that's, pretty simple and short and sweet. But the sensory writing, the boy goes in and he describes how he smells something really good when he sits down to the table and realizes his mother has cooked his personal favorite. And he looks at her and she smiles and winks at him, and he feels all warm and fuzzy and loved inside. And then he looks at his dad, and his dad looks tired. And I mean, the child is taught to actually start being aware of what's going on around him with the people around him. What are their faces expressing? How is he feeling at this particular moment? And it's just a writing, exercise. But you can teach children to be mindful with stuff they're used to doing, and then all of a sudden they are becoming mindful. And in addition, you add to that the skills of deep breathing and meditation at the same time that you're teaching them these mindfulness writing skills and focusing skills and that sort of thing. Then all of it comes together in a whole environment. So I encourage you to look through that slide presentation as well. It's just another idea of how we can teach young children in a classroom situation how to focus and how to be mindful without coming across too religious or spiritual, so that the kids are turned off. They don't even know what's happening. They're becoming mindful without realizing it. And that's the cool part.
Yes, I'm huge on utilizing our senses to bring our mind back into our bodies. Beautiful, Robyn. Thank you. And Milt, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Robyn, too, because I think that's a huge part of the job, is for the students just to be thinking, doing the really critical thinking. And I think it's an awakening and already knowing it when we do some of this work. I was thinking, I didn't hear you mention perhaps a class on comparative religions, and I would include in that creation stories. I think it's very, very meaningful to hear the creation stories of different peoples. The other thing is and maybe it's in the biology, it certainly should be included in biology, and maybe it's separate, but really a deep understanding of living systems. What are the attributes and what are we endowed with? All life is endowed with. And I think I've shared with you before, but maybe I haven't. A week and a half ago or so, I taught the science class at Hood River High School, 25 kids or something. And we had 45 minutes was all. And I shared with them the difference between an understanding of what is organic in the Western world versus the indigenous world, and what is the difference in abundance, the marked difference, where the abundance in the Western world is we take and take and take, and in the indigenous world, it's that life, the earth will always provide as long as we meet our mutual responsibility. And after maybe 10 or 15 minutes just talking about that and so forth, I asked them 4 questions about who they're being today, who their parents' generation is being, who the government's being, and who they wish to be when they go out into the world and do their work. And 100% of them made a paradigm shift from who they're being today to supporting an earth-based world. And we showed that same to the science teachers a few days later, and 85% of them shifted. So it's an amazing thing. It awakens up something internally. And I think this is a big part of our work. I'd also suggest that there be some sort of, probably for older kids, of human dynamics that shows that cultures really are fundamentally different. And I'd include in there living languages. What is the language you speak? How does that shape the brain when you're young? And how does that shape your whole life and the whole culture? And I think I've shared with folks here before that in working with indigenous people, and indigenous elders said to me, Mel, when we speak our language, it's like awakening and already knowing. And I think that this is the sort of thing that the kids ought to recognize. And I had a colleague of mine in Portland say to me when he saw the matrix of the living language, he said, this helps people understand that they don't know what they don't know. And that's really a beautiful awakening. So I'd also include something about how do we play the game of life? What are the games that we play in terms of the finite win-lose games and the infinite win-win games? And why do we always need that win-win umbrella? Because if we don't, win-lose turns into lose-lose. So kids, I think they get it. They need to understand it. And the last thing I think I would do is create a class for the older kids on ethics. Maybe not so old, to just give them some ethical dilemmas and let them wrestle with them, and then see what the primary ethic is that's governing their behavior. So those are the suggestions that I'd have for interfaith curriculum. And thank you for what you've done. I think today's session has been very helpful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Milt. Any other shares?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead,
Shirish, yeah.
Shirish. Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. It was a treat to hear this. One little thing I like to add, talking about the curriculum for children, is for the very young, we are missing out on the little stories and parables for all ages, If you could add that, just a little addition. That's all. Thank you.
Beautiful. Stories are how we
Daryl.
learn. Yeah, go ahead, Daryl. Just unmute yourself. Yep, you're good.
Thank you. I think these are been very helpful inputs from both Shiv and Robyn, and it's really nice to see that new stage emerging of what lies ahead of us to do. And I mean, I say us, and I know it's a heavy burden that falls on Shiv and Robyn, but they've got the direction, they've got the insight that's really needed. So I'm very appreciative. But I found myself also thinking about my own interest in interfaith that goes back to the early 1970s. And when that interest started to emerge within the academic world, there were people, academics, that wrote, American academics, that wrote in the American Academy of Religion journal that we couldn't do this kind of education, interfaith education, because that was too positive about religion. And it involved talking about religion, and the American Constitution forbid that kind of approach to things. And I was like, where does this crazy stuff come from? Anyway, we've come a long way since that time. And now interfaith kinds of things are a dime a dozen. So I just say that to sort of encourage us that there are things, if we're sort of working in the right direction, even though it feels like often like nothing's really getting out there and moving, I think things are getting out there and moving. And one of the major ways that I think that's being done is how people are finding their way into mindfulness. And that's pretty fundamental for what she's speaking about, and richer than some versions and so on and so forth. But I don't think we need to argue about that thing. We need to sort of see the way things are going globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Bob, I saw your hand up.
I don't know if there's anybody here from Quebec. The program there that was introduced about 10 years ago is called Ethics and Religious Culture. And at least in theory, and I haven't sort of followed how the implementation has worked out. It's attempted to do a lot of the things that have been mentioned here. I mean, it does. So this kind of replaced, Quebec was a heavily Catholic society, and you know, education in the Catholic religion was integrated into the curriculum traditionally, and this has been replaced by a curriculum that does sort of teach in sort of all world religions, all major world religions, and also integrates ethics into that curriculum. So, as I say, at least in theory, and you know, I know there have been problems with implementation because, I mean, you need teachers who can handle this kind of curriculum, which is difficult. But this is a program that sort of covers everything from you know, the beginning of elementary school to upper secondary school, and you know, it's something, if we're thinking about proposing this kind of thing, I think Quebec is one model that we should look at.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Sammy, I saw you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it is such an interesting session, and I am also a teacher. You know, there's so much to look forward to, and such a lot of points have come in that, you know, I mean, in one's individual capacity also, one can do so much in incorporating these ideas and, you know, these approaches while teaching can help so much. Thank you for this session, Shiv sir. Very nice. Very inspiring, very empowering.
I agree. Thank you, Sammy. And it's late for you too, I believe. Hey,
Not too late.
not too late, no?
We are close to dinner time now. It's now in 9:30 p.m.
Oh, okay. Okay, not too bad then. Shirish, did you have something else to add? I thought I saw your hand up.
No, just forgot to add a little bit of, you know, what we want to add is a feeling that this can be introduced in a joyful way. In other words, it should, you know, when we are all inspired, and in the, you know, anything at any level when we present it, you know, passing on the energy of connecting at a deeper level, you know, which is basically a level of bliss, happiness, joy. You know, somehow, if you can introduce it in terms of humor or whatever, but all value-based, basically. You know, that's what I had in mind.
Oh, beautiful. Thanks, Shirish. Yes, so stories and having fun is a key way of learning. I mentioned that, you know, how were we going to learn 26 letters of the alphabet unless we made it fun and into a song, right? So that's how the impression happens in the nervous system when there's the emotional aspect to it. Beautiful, thanks. Any other thoughts, comments, reflections? Where two or more gather is a very powerful thing. And here we are as a group sharing the same intention, and this is where shift begins to happen. So all of us are really appreciative of your focus and your attention and your intention and your time for contributing to this important cause. Yes, Shiv, my friend, go ahead.
It's a request that we consider how we can be personally involved in making this shift that Christine, that you were talking about. Which subject can we teach contemplatively? Which curriculum we can prepare contemplatively? For example, there are people from public health here There are people from public policy. People from public policy can prepare a course on how people who work on making this change happen, they can make the change happen. I think what we should be looking at is the ideas that have been generated, and then those implementers of those ideas may not be the same people. Okay, the people who came up with the ideas, the implementers of the ideas are different, and the promoters of the ideas are different. So a person who is educated in public policy can be giving a course to people who are promoting these ideas. People who are in public health, they can come up with how public health can be maybe taught with the mind-body connection rather than a mind connection and a body connection, that mind and body not talking to each other. You know, the people who are biology experts can maybe prepare a curriculum on how to teach the first course in biology. People in physics can be, they can perhaps prepare a course, a detailed course on how to weave meaningfulness in the teaching of natural sciences like physics and chemistry. And there are people who are teaching social sciences, psychology, for example. Psychology and scripture has been totally separate from each other. And there is a connection of, for example, the scriptures of the word and the way humans behave. And psychology can be talking about the psycho-spiritual, the psycho-spiritual model of behavior, in addition to the psychological approaches to behavior and behavior modification. So there are all kinds of, this is what we're talking about is interdisciplinary education, and people in different disciplines can come forward and suggest a little change in their own disciplines. People in economics can be involved in how economics should be done from the point of view of our connection with each other. And people in religion can be, you know, that's where the whole thing is at. How religion can help, how it should be, religious education should be changed or should change so that we can make these spiritual connections. After all, spirituality is the foundation of religion.
Thank you, Shiv.
I just want to make that suggestion to everybody that is here, that we can all be part of making this change.
Absolutely. Amanda, you had your hand up earlier and we haven't heard from you, so I'd love to hear your insights. Yeah, Amanda, did you want to add anything? Her name is, I'm reading that correctly, right?
Ananda.
Ananda? I could, that looks like an M to me. I'm like, it's like.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I had almost all the things I was going to say have been already said, but in my opinion, spirituality, if we think of it, spirituality in all religion are very similar. If we just take the religion out and just think of the stories and concepts, they are like everyone says that, you know, love thy neighbor, don't steal, this and that. Everything is the same in every religion. Somehow we have to reach the children and try them to understand that our next door neighbor is just like us. When we cut, we bleed. When we fall down, we get hurt. So, you know, as a human being, we are a human being, and that's the message at a very young age we have to inculcate in our kids. So that was the idea in my mind. It was a really nice session. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And Robyn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I want to put a note of caution here. I know all of us that are attending are spiritually oriented, and spirituality and faith and all that's a huge part of our lives. And so we obviously feel that that has to be part of this because it is what helped us become who we are. But what I have found is there's a lot of people out there that are still trying to buck that religion thing to the point that even the interfaith groups, there's a lot of activists there that want people to get out and work for the common good, but they don't want any kind of faith or religion brought into the project. They just want all people of different religions to get together, but don't talk about religion. And just to give an example, I went to a big interfaith conference in DC called Reimagining Interfaith. And religion and faith was not mentioned in any workshop that I went to. I was sitting at a table and we were having a conversation about, you know, something that was going on. And one of the women there actually said, well, I think we should take the word faith out. And I'm thinking, how can you have interfaith without the word faith? And so I just want everybody to be aware that even though faith and religion is a core part of what we're going to teach, we kind of have to tiptoe around it a little bit so that these people that don't want to hear about faith don't realize they're hearing about faith, if that makes any sense at all. I mean, we have to use the word life energy instead of spirituality, and, you know, just so that these parents that are atheists or agnostics, they don't get, oh, I don't want my child in that class. And I mean, I hope you understand. I understand how important the faith part is. But there's a huge mass of people right now that are fighting against that. And we have to figure out how we can word this curriculum to teach faith without stressing faith. So they're getting the concepts without, I don't know. I hope I'm making sense here. I mean, we need to like go incognito, I guess, and teach the concepts that are the core thoughts behind spirituality. But we don't necessarily need to mention faith. Now, granted, when we're talking about different cultures, we could very easily, you know, you're talking about the Chinese culture or you know, Italy, they're very staunch Catholics. You can bring in religion there in a sort of a non-threatening way and kind of talk about it a little bit as part of a cultural development process. But I hope that makes my comments clear. I mean, I'm not against teaching faith, but we have to be careful. That's all.
Yeah, that's those are important points, Robyn, and that raised a few hands too. So we'll go with Stephen, then Garma, and Shrish.
I see the point brought up halfway through about curative wording raised his head is very important. About a year ago, I published an article on dialogue between scientists and religious leaders. But the original title of the paper, and it was published in Public Health Genomics, by the way, was not religious leaders, it was faith leaders. And then one of the reviewers commented, you mean that scientists don't have faith? And so they explicitly said, look, you've got to replace faith with another word. And the implication was it was too general. So some people have an aversion to using faith, but some also have a confusion when they see that word. So the root of it is when it comes time to actually present our curriculum, I agree we do have to be careful about the wording, And sometimes it's for reasons that you least expect.
Beautiful, thanks. Okay, Garma.
Yeah, I would just say that I think we should clarify that for people for whom the language of faith is kind of a turn off, and I would at some level put myself there. It's because there's a history associated with religion in our everyday lives that serve to undermine the full potential of people. And so I think and served as a vehicle of oppression. And so I think that we need to be able to name those things for people to, and recognize that for people to then engage. Because if you don't recognize that, then people automatically assume that that is not being recognized. And so I think it's less about being subversive or go incognito, but rather recognizing head on what is so offensive about it for some people, right? And so just to put it very plainly, and in that regard, I think that in the work that we do, while it requires some level of hubris to be able to move forward with wanting to affect policy change, in this work, I think recognizing that there is no clear-cut answer is important. And so if you go to the table by saying, this is what we think, but we'd love to hear what you think, it actually invites more engagement rather than saying, here's the answer. So, so just putting that out there in terms of a more joyful and a more respectful way of engaging in these topics, because the histories associated with them are very difficult for people, and for good reason. And I think we should recognize that.
Well said, thank you. And Shirish, you had something to add?
Yes, just a little. Two points I would add. One was the word faith. I remember once there was one holy man, and somebody, I was listening to him, and this person said, look, Swami, I like everything you say, but I don't believe in that business called faith. I mean, I don't have faith. So he said, you do? He said, do I? Anyway, he told him, you have faith in yourself, don't you? Yes, that's what we are talking about, is faith. You have faith in the pilot who is driving taking you on the flight. So that's one point I wanted to say. Faith can be on different things. Now, second point I wanted to make was this. There's talking about commonality between different faiths and so on. One key word we could be playing with, I thought, is being human. Humanism with a theistic or an atheistic attitude, but main thing is humanism. And my understanding is that all the religions ultimately want you to be more human, the real humanity coming out. Because that's what they talk about when they say you have to be childlike, before you can enter the kingdom and whatever, different. So I thought I would throw the word humanism out, just for us to meditate on, contemplate on.
Yes, nice. Humanistic is a great word that everyone shares. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, reflections?
People have asked me, how do you define spirituality? And I have not come up with a better answer than what I'm going to talk about now. Spirituality is your capacity to recognize and acknowledge in life that there is more to the world than meets the eye. There are subtle realities of life, and once we start recognizing those subtle realities of life are more comprehensive than what meets the eye. That ability I call spirituality. Spirit is totally, totally imperceptible. Energy is totally, totally imperceptible. They're perceptible only when they take forms. So if we do not recognize the importance of what is imperceptible or so subtle that they are imperceptible, we miss out on so many comprehensive truths. For example, this COVID-19, it's about maybe 2 grams of COVID-19. If you collect all the COVID-19 in the whole bloody world, 2 grams of it, that can kill the whole universe, at least this planet. That is the extent to which subtle realities can be comprehensive. Spirit is totally imperceptible. It is the most subtle that can be. Energy is the most subtle that can be. That is why it can take any form. That is our common ground. So that is how I define spirituality. Now, I don't know whether it's a faith approach or I'm the most faithless person you will find on this earth. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Faith is, I define faith as taking something and believing in it without examining it. And when I start to examine, you examine, the only tool that we have got to examine things is critical reason. And if it doesn't stand to critical reason, somehow it doesn't go with me. That applies to spirituality, that applies to science, that applies to engineering, or that applies to the whole life.
I think that's a great note to end on. Unless, Robyn, did you want to share any final words?
Yes, I'd like to thank you again for participating. I would like to make sure that if any of you have a personal website and you want it listed as being a contributor, please send that to Shiv or myself. And if you have anything against us putting your name on the bottom as being a contributor, please let us know. I notice we have some first names without last names. I'm hoping Shiv has that information, but if not, I need that as well. And I can't thank you enough for sticking with us for 4 weeks and all those wonderful thoughts and ideas. It's bound to make this whole process much deeper and richer than it would have been without you. So thank you again.
Thank you, Robyn. And thank you, Shiv, Robyn, and Garima for sharing your knowledge and wisdom today. And again, a big thank you for all the participants for your attention, time, and energy that you're putting into this great cause. So with that, I bid everyone a beautiful rest of your Sunday. And yeah, we'll be in touch, I'm sure. So thank you and Godspeed.
Thank
Be
you
well.
so very much.
Yeah.
For spending your time with us and sharing your ideas.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Much love to you.